Hey everyone, it's Sarah from SarahTypes.com. Today I'm going to show you 10 ways that you can up your lettering game. Number 1, make sure you have really good paper. My favorite paper is marker paper. When you have better paper, not only does your marker or your pen go on much smoother, but also doesn't eat up your brush pens and fray all of the tips. So it not only keeps your brushes lasting longer, but it also makes your writing look way better. Number 2, find the perfect pen. There are so many different ways that you can do lettering and calligraphy. There's a million different pens and they all achieve different results. The best thing to do is to buy a few different styles and try them out and see which ones that you gravitate towards. And then once you've found that one that just clicks, either you feel the most comfortable with it in your hand or maybe you like the way it looks at the end the best. Once you found that pen, start practicing with that one more so than the others, and then really develop your own style the more you perfect it. Number 3, don't stare while copying. You should never really copy anyone's work verbatim, but sometimes you do need a reference, especially when you're a beginner and maybe if you don't have a lot of experience with illustrating, you might need to look at something as a reference, and that's okay, but don't stare at it while you create your own artworks, because not only will it not look good because you're focusing so much on the other person's artwork and not really on what you're doing, but it's also not going to be your style, so it's going to look forced. If you can look at it as a reference and then pay attention to your piece, then you'll see that your own style will come through. It may not be perfect at first, but eventually it will turn into something that other people might want to look at as a reference. Number 4, vectorize your artwork. That is a great way to bring whatever you've done up a level. You can use vector projects for almost anything. It's really good to vectorize it because you can make it pretty much any size. So that means you can use it for large print scale things or even like t-shirts or phone cases. But then you can also really play around with it in Photoshop and Illustrator and add more effects to it, add some 3D looks to it. There's so many things you can do to it that just take it up another level. And of course, I do have a tutorial on how to vectorize your lettering, so if you want to try it, I will link that above and go check it out. If you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment below, which leads me into number 5. Ask questions. If you have letterers or artists that you follow on Instagram or YouTube and you really like techniques that they show you, don't be afraid to ask them how they did that. Tip number 6, relax your hand. When you first start, you are probably going to be very tense when you're lettering, and you'll notice that that will show in the way that you grip your tools. I do this all the time, so just think about it when you're lettering. If you find that maybe it's looking a little robotic and you want it to have a little bit more flow, just take a deep breath, relax, and let your hand go a little bit and let the movements come from your wrist. Number 7. Inspiration. When you want to sit down and letter, sometimes you don't know what to write, and I think that's a common problem for everybody, especially myself. So my advice to you is to go on Pinterest and find quotes, words, lyrics, anything that really rings a bell, and then create a board where you can pin all those. That way when you're ready to actually sit down and create something, you don't have to worry about what you're going to write. You can just go to your references, grab one of those, and then just start practicing. Tip number 8, go slow. I find that when I'm lettering and if something just isn't working out the way I want it to, if it's a little wobbly or if it's just not what I had imagined, I find if I just slow it down and really pay attention to where I am going with my pen, that tends to help, and then I usually get it a little bit closer to what I had in mind than when I was at full speed. Tip number 9, make sure that you have read a little bit or studied a little bit on typography and the core principles, because those will get you very far. You want to know how letters are formed and how they are in relation to each other. You want to make sure that you're using a grid, things that will just help you keep your letters in line and make sure that it's readable. These are all really important, especially when you're starting. And then when you get a little bit better, you can kind of break a few of those rules. Not all of them, because you still want people to read what you write, but you can break a few of them and play with it. But I suggest, if you're having some issues, read up a little bit on it and take it back to the basics. I'll link some really good blog posts in the description below that can help you out with that. Number 10, to bring your lettering up a little bit, try adding some shadows or highlights. I find when I letter something out and I feel like it's looking a little bland or a little plain, if I add in some shadows or highlights, it really makes it pop, and it just adds a bit of interest. And it's pretty easy to do. I mean, shadows can be a little tricky at first. You want to make sure you know where the sunlight is coming from, so you get them all even, because if one letter shadow is different than another letter shadow, then the effect will be completely lost. So you want to make sure you get that right, and if you do, it adds a lot to your lettering. So that's my 10 tips. I do have one bonus tip, and that is obviously have fun. And when I say have fun, you can try lettering on other things besides paper. Try different surfaces like bananas or bottles, anything like that. See what you have lying around the house, and then, you know, grab some Sharpie oil paint pens or just a regular Sharpie and try it on different surfaces, because this will just add a level of interest to your work. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any tips, leave them below and let us know what your tips are. I'd be happy to hear them. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more.